My name is Babukar Sy, welcoming you to another edition of The Viewpoint, coming to you on QTV. If you're joining us for the first time, The Viewpoint is a special platform created by this medium to look into the latest happenings in and around the globe, where we discuss with pertinent Gambians and non-Gambians on happenings. Tonight, I have a special people, of course, in this studio. Mr. James Bahum joining me, Mr. Malika, and Mr. Ibrahim Chongan. Gentlemen, welcome to The Viewpoint.
Thank you. Thank you.
First, well, I'm sure you will agree with me that if you come in having a president that comes into a state for the first time, you would want him or her to declare his or her assets. First of all, let me start with you, Mr. James Bahum. Declare to the viewers, which party or project do you belong to?
Party, if you mean a political
party, obviously.
Oh no, I don't have any political party membership affiliation. I am an activist and have been for the past 22, 24 years, really.
Interesting, Mr. Ka?
Yeah, same. I mean, I don't belong to any political party. I'm non-partisan as it stands, and I'm just an activist that takes concern about everything that's happening in the Gambia.
Mr. Chongan?
Ditto the same. You know, I'm a political activist. I believe in civil society. I'm more interested in civil society.
Interesting. Yeah. So we have
at the moment, you know, in life,
activists with me today, and mind you, they all live in abroad, so we can call it the diaspora show tonight if you want. Excuse me. Let me start with you back to Mr. Bahum. The struggle, you know, we're all benefiting from the fruit right now, but it started way, you know, beyond years back when some of us were very young, you know, back in almost a decade and a half. What do you make of the difference now, after 22 years of what many call dictatorship?
I think we should look at it from the perspective that at different times in history, people, citizens, have to play their full part in political processes. And for us, 1994 was a seminal date. July 22nd, precisely. And that is because from where we were in the United Kingdom, where I lived and have lived for a very long time, we saw the change of government as a very retrogressive act, given that at that point in history and time, the political systems in Africa were beginning to democratize. And to have a coup in 1994, when most other sub-regional countries have been trying very hard to democratize their country, we thought, or we saw the 1994 coup led by, you know, Lieutenant Jammeh as, you know, a step backwards. So we thought perhaps, you know, looking at the history of West Africa and the history of coups in West Africa, that we were not going to have a, you know, an easy ride. First of all, but that our progress to democracy was going to be stalled. So we decided that we must be able to do something to reverse this very serious situation that was taking place.
But again, almost nothing was done. You know, it was very minimal, you know, compared to when the struggle started, the later part. From 94 going maybe to the early 2000s, things were okay. It was like things were running normal, despite, you know, the illegal takeover of power.
Yes, it was a coup d'etat not only against Jawara, but the president at the time, but it was a coup d'etat against the constitution. So for us, we saw that as a very negative development. And we thought perhaps there must be something to really avert that situation. Now, of course, at the time we started agitating and advocating, very few people really wanted to have any relationship with us, or perhaps even believed in what we were projecting. So we were very, I give this example of being in an island, just a few people who were very determined to expose the potential danger that was involved in that coup, but also that it created a situation where the rule of law, human rights, and all these values that we respected were going to take back seat to the aspirations, the ambitions, if you like, of the coup makers. So we thought this was a serious situation, and it was only going to get worse as time goes on. But at that point, at that stage, very few people believed what we were saying.
But when did you start exactly advocating?
Oh, I keep saying this, and to the chagrin of many, that you know, I started on the 23rd of July 1994, because I'm a student of history. And looking at the West African situation at the time, any country that had experienced coup had also seen serious reversals, both in terms of their politics, their democracy, but also there were serious violations of human rights that followed in the wake of any coup, be it in Nigeria, be it in Ghana, be it in Sierra Leone, and so many other countries. And so we saw already that there was going to be some bad things going to happen in Gambia, as it were, because of the history lessons that we've learned from these other countries.
I'll come back to you in a moment. Mr. Chongan, well, you're a living witness to all of this. We've had your revelations in the TRRC. We don't want to go to that level, but from 94 to the 2000s, from 2000s to the 2018, the new millennium, what difference did you see from the coup d'etat coming to the early 2000s? Well,
thank you for giving me the floor. I think I'll take it from where Brother James stopped. I mean, they were agitating in England, and me, I went to exile in '97, and as soon as I came, I joined them. I met James, Malika, and our doyen, Mr. Job. He was supposed to come, he's not here. I can vividly remember sometimes when you have Yusundur, I go and Brother James, and we had papers talking about the human rights abuses. This is '97. But that,
in the UK?
Yeah, '97 in the UK. But that time people were not convinced.
What do you put on the papers? What do you tell them?
Yeah, we talk about how human rights abuses, how unconstitutional this, and how this is going to lead to disaster. This will affect everybody in the future. Because at that time, everybody had that thing, it doesn't touch me, I'm fine.
Yes,
yes, and then eventually it has affected or touched each and every family in the Gambia and abroad. But as the years go by, as James has articulated, a lot of people, they were even afraid when they see us, they don't even want to talk to us because they want to come to holiday in the Gambia, etc. So we started continue agitating, sometimes going to the embassy to demonstrate. The more the government does an outrageous act, we go and demonstrate. And later you have some of the other activists who came in the 2000s, mid-2000s, and then the thing is just, the human rights abuses are becoming more and more apparent. And then the demonstration now is becoming more and more serious, where we don't just only go to the embassy, we organize symposium. We are very grateful to Mr. Job. We have a permanent hall, is it Athlone Hall? In Athlone House in Camden, Kentish Town, where we do our meetings and symposiums. And then obviously the online newspapers and the online radios came, and then it just gave it a more amplification. And now everybody know what was happening, and unless you want to find an excuse. So I'll stop here and then give Malik a chance. Yeah.
Well, Mr. Can I conclude by saying you're the founding fathers of the struggle?
No, I wouldn't go that far. There are lots of other people on the ground who definitely confronted the monster, and they were living with it. But we were complementing their efforts at the same time, because being in exile gave us more leverage, because we could do certain things that were limited here on the ground. We knew that this system was barbaric, and they have institutions of incarceration such as Mile 2, which was inherited from the colonial era, and it was terrible. Nobody would want to find him or herself there. The conditions were appalling when it was revealed to the public. So you can imagine what they were going through. So definitely in any struggle where you have an oppressor, parallel to it will emerge a culture of resistance. And that culture of resistance is both internal and external. And that you can see replicated throughout history. In the history of the ANC and other struggles, it was the same. You will have the internal struggle complemented by the external forces. So we were kind of an appendage of the struggle that was happening, because we took great interest about what was happening in Gambia. This is the only country we have that we can call home. Anywhere we go, we just adopted aliens that have documents to say that we are nationals, but this is where the heart lives. So therefore, we took great interest about what was happening politically. So also to inspire also and encourage those who were resisting, so we have to make sure that our voices were had. James and I, on many occasions, used to go to the BBC. We did programs on VOA. We did programs in different mediums in the West so as to highlight what was happening. But this was the early stages. And a lot of people, because of gullibility or naivety, they cannot conceptualize what we were advocating for, saying that this is an evil regime that is going to lead us to disaster. But that's how we were working, complementing the efforts of the doyens that are definitely...
Well, it would have been very difficult to just convince them, knowing that they leave their families home, knowing that, you know, most of the people that even committed the crimes ran away, but their families are gone after. So it was very difficult. But will you agree with me that, you know, the struggle came to power, it came to light in the afterwards of the 2000, 2005, when many youths, most of them key but again, they really gave it a big boost to when they came.
Oh yeah, you know, in every struggle there is a qualitative leap, and that came at some point, as Chongan alluded to earlier on. When you have the online media, they came and then the voices started amplifying, you know, then it catch up. A lot of people who didn't know what was happening started to take notice that this small country, Gambia, there is a hellhole. There is a lot of things happening. So we start marching, demonstrating, and then once you start demystifying the dictator, a lot of people start also having the courage to come and join forces with you. And also other people who were directly affected at some point, they had no choice but also to come and rally behind the call to challenge what was happening at the time.
Mr. Bahum, I've spoke to some few diasporians that December, January, it's when they all come down, and some of them will tell me where the struggle still continues. It left me wondering, what are we talking about? We have a new regime, this is a third republic. What do they mean exactly? Do you live by the same?
Just so I can just take off from where Malik left, in every struggle there are seminal dates, and in the case of the Gambia and our struggle, the most important was the April 10th and 11th, 2000 event, that very sad event, you know, where school children were mowed down by security forces. And that helped to galvanize people and bring them on board. We have been saying previous to that there was going to be a deterioration in the human rights situation and condition in the Gambia. But most people didn't believe. Perhaps they wanted a change of government. And Jammeh provided a change which really was not a qualitative change. You know, it was a change of personnel, but also it portends very serious, you know, human rights issues and lack of the rule of law and so forth and so on. But coming to your question about, you know, this new change that we are enjoying now. Look, when we struggled, it was because most people on the ground here in the Gambia could not speak out for fear of, you know, losing life or limb. And we have seen a series of, you know, violations of human rights, murders, disappearances, and so forth and so on. A lot of people gave their lives. Some the ultimate price, the ultimate sacrifice was made in that they lost their lives in the process of fighting was a very virulent dictator. Now, of course, it was a a combination of the ground forces as well as the external influences and forces that we represented in the diaspora. And when we fought to change Jammeh, we fought for certain basic ideals. And these ideals were respect for fundamental rights, respect for constitutionalism, respect for democracy, and so forth and so on. And under the current circumstances, even though we have a change of personnel, we have a change of government, we also expected a change of the system which Jammeh put in place. That was merely for his own benefit. Now, what we are seeing currently is that we do not have that systems change that we advocated for so long.
You concur with Halifa that there is no system, it's just a system change?
Of course, the system has not changed much. We can now hear the president threatening people and saying things like, don't cross my line, or I have more powers than Jammeh, and I don't only have the powers that Jammeh had, but I also have economic. Now, that is a false statement.
No, but maybe he was just trying to portray that these forces that he has, but despite all that, he's not trying to, use it on people illegally.
The economic. Economic is not here under his direct command. That was ECOWAS is mandated to protect the security of the sovereign state of Gambia, given what had happened. before, and the fact that we needed to get rid of Jammeh. That is what brought ECOMIG here. So for him to be using that statement to really show himself off as a very powerful individual is ill-advised, I suppose.
I'll come back to you. Mr. Kah, after exactly 2 years or plus months of Barrow's leadership, how will you rate him?
Well, I mean, I think he have a lot more to do. I mean, the expectations were high, but the deliverance also is really not up to satisfaction. And a lot of people have challenged that, and some people are described as, you know, haters also, but the reality remains that Gambia has not changed very much. If you look at the structures, the institutions that we inherited, they're still intact, and they're operating in a way that you find some personnel that were aiding and abetting Dictator Jammeh, they are still in positions of authority and then dispensing a similar type of administrative style. We were expecting more, but we are not receiving and seeing a lot happening. And we also understand that a lot of monies have been injected into the system, but it's not trickling down to the people. We are not seeing the lives of the ordinary Gambian people improved. Some basic things are still absent. I mean, water is a serious issue.
But you think all of this can happen within 2 years?
Absolutely. Why not? They should be able to provide those basic things. This is not a huge country. We are talking about this peri-urban area. It's not a huge kind of population.
But Mr. Kai, we've all agreed that 22 years, you if I call it a dictatorship regime of 22 years, you think within 2 years everything can change?
Well, we're not saying everything, but at least the direction, the trajectory have to indicate that we are moving in a progressive way. But what we are experiencing, that's what I'm saying, it's not that. We are experiencing a lot of negativity in terms of delivery of services, in terms of the way that the system is operating. There is a lot of room for improvement, certainly.
Mr. Chongan, you live by the same rule, or you think there is at least, you know, improvement?
I broadly agree, but I think we have to understand, if you look at history, whenever a country comes out of a long dictatorship, you need a fundamental change to reform the institutions. See, the key issue of any country is the institution, the civil service, the armed and the security forces. Those things need to be reviewed. Obviously, it's going to get some time, but you have to see, as we say in English, the green suits, you know, and we have to really work hard, as James has correctly indicated. The system is fairly intact. We are not saying you come and you dismiss everybody. No, what we are saying is you reform, you retrain, because you got to understand during the last government, it was very easy because it's an authoritarian government. So you just give orders and people execute. That is very easy. But now we are in a democracy. People are talking. They're going to criticize. And also some of these institutions were operating under an authoritarian system. Now you have a democracy. Now people have higher expectations. People have freedom of expression. Before, you know, a policeman can stop and say this. Nobody will challenge it. Now people will come and challenge it. So we need to adapt.
That alone is an improvement.
No. That's not an improvement. That is our fundamental right.
Really?
I mean,
those rights were granted to you 3-4 years ago.
But that's what brought the struggle and to end it. You know, I think African people should always understand that your basic human right, that is your right. Nobody gives it to you. That's, after all, that's what our constitution said. Even this bad constitution we have, there are some human rights clauses there. So to say that people have a right to freedom of speech, that's what we fought for. So that's not the issue. The issue of moving forward is about reforming the institutions so that we have a clear plan where we want to be in the next couple of years. So that is my take on it. And also, if the institutions are functioning, they will be able to help the politicians. You know, everywhere in the world, the civil service, they prepare their ministers, etc., so that when they come to the stage to speak, they will be speaking in accordance with the Constitution and what is feasible.
I think after 1 year on the leadership, he sat down and think of it. He promised a 3-year transitional period. I mean, that's what was on the agreement, the coalition agreement. But what's your take of the, the National Development Plan of 2021?
Well, I mean, in terms of whether they're going to do 3 years or 5 years, I think
he has already said it, that he wants to.
Well, we are not certain yet. But what is certain is this was a coalition government, and they agreed a plan that they are going. Okay, so we don't know whether it's going to be 3 years or it's going to be 5 years. And
but the NDP can dictate it. It says 2021. That's 5 years.
It doesn't matter. You can have a plan of 10 years. Government continue. You see, this is also one of our problems in Africa. You just plan for 2 years, and then another government will come in the future, and then put another plan. A country, you have a plan over decades, so that when another government comes, they continue. They will change, they will re-emphasize, they will do things. They will do
hardly practice in Africa.
Well, but we could be the force. We are the leaders when it comes to democracy.
Mr. Kai, you agree? 3 years, 5 years, the talking point,
I know this has become even boring, everybody talks about it. We knew what the agreement was, everybody in the Gambia have heard President Barrow, affirming to the fact that he was going to serve what the MOU agreed upon, and everybody knew that 3 years was inbuilt in their discussions. And when they went round talking to the people, seeking for votes, that was what was being told to the people. So the expectation is that if he violates it, then that's a different issue. How the people are going to hold him accountable and his coalition partners, then that's a different matter. But the fact remains that, the tapes are there, it does exist in all platforms, that they were constantly reiterating the fact that it was going to be a 3-year transition period. So to go on debating about it become even futile, because it's there. But what we ought to know is he going to be committed to his word, or is he reneging on his word? People are arguing, some have reduced it to an academic exercise, talking about this is what the Constitution provides. Of course, we all knew what the provisions of the Constitution were. More so the coalition actors, who have been politicians for decades, and they know more so than anyone else the contents of the provisions of the Constitution. So you cannot come and say, this is what the provisions say, this is that. We know that, but this is serious breach of trust if you renege on it. And he could be challenged if the coalition partners decide to. They can have a test case in the courts and see if they can enforce the agreement, because it was a contractual relationship. It can be binding. It's an onerous agreement. So we expect that something will give. Either they will just let him pass and do the 5 years, or they will challenge it.
But that you think if they should challenge it, compare it to what the Constitution dictates, says 5 years, I think it's a no-go area for, we don't want to waste your time trying to challenge something against a constitution of a land.
I know that's true. The Constitution overrides everything.
Oh, yeah.
But certain things also within the Constitution have to be taken into account. There are contractual relationship that has to be honored. At the end of the day, if the coalition partners decide to challenge it, all the arguments will come before the courts, and then we will hear the pros and cons.
That would be interesting. I hope we won't reach there. Mr. James, if you want to add on it, I'm sure you want to say something about it, but I was
because for me, this is fundamental.
Okay.
We have to start keeping our politicians honest. And one of the first things that we queried about Yahya Jammeh was because he was not honest with the Gambian people. The revelations following his removal from office clearly showed that he was not honest with the Gambian people. Now, we don't want politicians who would now come back after we've struggled for 22 years to change that system, but continue in that same line as Jammeh did over the last 22 years. So I am saying, if the president made a promise, not only to his coalition partners, but to the Gambian people in general, supported very well and very much by civil society, I think they should keep to their word. Now, we all know individual ambitions sometimes, cloud their judgment. And in this case, that is exactly what is happening. When Barrow stood there, President Barrow stood there on the day that he was elected, he repeated that. He said that he was only going to be here for 3 years. What did Halifa call it? It was a Ngurin Japandal, meaning it's a transitional government. What we are trying to avoid by limiting the term of the president in spite of the constitutional provision, because remember, the Constitution is the supreme law of the country, but it does not exclude people agreeing, making agreements where there is a meeting of minds. And that is what happened with the coalition. We all knew that the Constitution states clearly that there is a fixed term, 5-year fixed term presidency. But did it say that you couldn't make a change or the president resigns? Because what will happen if the president resigns is that the vice president then continues the residual period of the presidency.
For 2 years remaining.
Yes, okay. And therefore, if you really gave us your honest opinion or your honest statement that I am going to resign after 3 years, we can get somebody else out there. At the time that he began to change his promise, the vice president was not a politician of the kind that belongs to a party. And therefore, he was a civil society representative. And she could have completed the rest of the term of the president. Indeed, and call elections at the end of that. But even that, I am saying, when I first came here in February of 2017, after the change, having been away for 22 years, I find there was a very, very lethargic civil service. Nobody was really working hard to even commence the transition at that point. For me, that was the first indication that this transition may not keep to the term that was agreed.
Really?
Because I was hoping at the time that I came in February, the president had only just taken over or was about, just being installed, even though there was no proper transition in the sense of preparing a transitional plan. I thought maybe the civil service was not pretty much grappling with the necessity to change the system. People go to work at 8 and finish at 4 and go and do whatever they wanted to do. In a transitional process, in a system like that, in the condition that we were, and knowing what we had to change and the amount of work that required, I was expecting to come here and find out that the civil servants would be behind their desk at 9 o'clock at night, eating sandwiches for lunch and dinner. No, but this is important, because that was going to give the indication that there was the seriousness to transition the country from a system that was so bad, both for our politics, our economy, and our social system, into a new, totally new dispensation. And that didn't happen. And from that point onwards, I had my doubts about the sincerity of the government to really transition into a new dispensation.
My understanding, the 3 years and the 5 years, we have Barrow been backed by almost 3 or 4 heads of political parties working with him currently. And Gambians are so eager about these 3 years, whilst, they're there, the Maifati is back, Ahmad Ba is with them, Dabo, the Aïssatou Touré, they're all working with him. And when you talk to them, they'll say, well, 5 years is what the Constitution says. That's the tone of tune that we're getting now.
That's neither here or there. But the Gambian people agreed with the coalition partners that it was going to be 3 years. Remember, the MOU was not only signed by politicians.
Did they really care at the time? Because they all wanted change. We all wanted change.
Of course. So Barrow is not necessarily the chosen one, Moses or whatever they call him. I'm saying he was, he gave us an opportunity to, and a privilege, when we gave him the privilege to lead. Now, if you tell us that you're going to do 3 years, you go around the country, because that was the coalition manifesto. It was that I'm going to do 3 years. That is why I said we need to keep our politicians honest. And the only way we can do it is to keep them accountable to their word and to their action. And for me, the fact that he said recently that he does not even need to consult the rest of the coalition partners, for me, that's a very sorry and unfortunate statement to make.
Well, that's it. I mean, we can continue talking about the political situation around, for the whole entire episode of this program. But I want us to take a quick swift to the diasporans. You've contributed immensely towards the change, the early change. The list goes on. Mr. Kah, recently, the diasporans complained of many things. Among them, it's even the resources sent back home, the taxes levied against them is very high. Voting rights, despite the struggle, you are left behind. You are a part of the votings. And you think we can achieve this in a short while?
Well, you know, the diaspora, you are dealing with a very complex, very complicated constituency. It's not necessarily a homogeneous constituency as such. We don't tend to agree on everything, but there are certain basic things that certainly we tend to agree with. For instance, issue of voting has been something that we've been advocating for. I know it's in the constitution, but the political will has never been there to
and the resources
are
not there.
The resources are there. I don't think it's a question of resources.
Really?
I think they should be able to muster the resources if the political will does exist. Because other countries are doing it. Guinea-Bissau, all these countries, Senegal, you know, and I don't see why we cannot do it. So those are the issues. On issues in terms of the vociferousness, in terms of demanding for certain services that you should expect. These are groups of people that live in the West for so long, and they are used to seeing how democracy operates. Because democracy is expectation. When you pay your taxes, you expect services to be delivered to you. But in here and most other African countries, they collect taxes day in, day out, week in, week out, but they don't provide any services. No wonder our roads are dilapidated, our schools are dilapidated, our hospitals don't have anything.
But projects have started that, you know, they're building roads, starting in the
most
urban area, decentralizing
most of these roads that you talk about in our countries, take Gambia for instance, it's not our taxpayers' money, it's built by EU, funded by
for
EU
fundings,
or
fundings,
But that's what I'm saying. If you collect taxes from the people, you should be able to show some concrete things that you provide for the people in terms of services and infrastructure. But we are not doing anything for ourselves.
Talking about taxes, the diasporans don't pay tax, and you should definitely contribute.
Oh yeah, the diaspora do pay taxes. What do you mean? Taxes are direct and indirect taxes.
Pay direct taxes as citizens.
Yeah, but we pay both because we send a lot of things. And we send a lot of
your
money.
families.
Yeah, but come on, families are what makes the country. The sum of the parts make the whole. Families is what a community is about. We send a lot of money into this, so we have stakes in terms of what happens. And we come here on holidays as well. We expect to have water, electricity, good roads, good hospitals, good these things. They are services we expect the government to provide.
Chongan wants to come in, but what I mean to say is even the single dollars that the Gambian working in the Gambia,
not only the money we are sending, but you have to remember that we have houses, we have compounds here, we're paying wherever you live. I live in KMC, I'm paying for my rates, paying etc. So we are paying direct taxes, not even indirect. We are paying direct taxes. We own properties here. And we are paying our dues. We're paying land tax, we're paying KMC tax, and we are paying NAWEC for the electricity we burn and other things. So this is not just like...
But if you want to get that voting right, at least to be, you know, paying monthly taxes has been deducted in Gambian salary, civil servants.
No. We are Gambians. We have a fundamental right to vote, like any other person.
Oh yes, that's true.
You know, as I rightly said, as what Laila Malik articulated, we are paying taxes both directly and indirectly. So this is our fundamental right, and it is not a myth for us to be able to vote. You know, in Senegalese they do it. We can vote in major cities, we can vote. We can go and cast our vote, or we can do postal voting. There must be a way where we have to vote. And I'm not just talking about next election. I'm talking about for the new constitution. We need to have a vote. Because any country, I just want to first emphasize what Malik said, the diaspora is not a monolithic group. We are not claiming we are representing the diaspora. But one thing that binds us is that we are all Gambians who are living outside the Gambia. And we also want to have a say in how our country develops. There is also a lot of diaspora who retire and come and live home and continue to pay taxes. So this is our fundamental right, and this is happening in Senegal next door. As Malik said, it is happening in Guinea-Bissau. So that is something that, you know, we are ready to engage to make sure that it materializes. We need to vote in the next constitution, and that will usher in the Third Republic. So I just wanted to emphasize that bit that we, you know, it's just a myth saying we are paying tax indirectly. We are paying tax directly. You know, most of the diaspora have their properties, their family properties. you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Baham, I would say, yeah, let's talk about tax and other things. They're quite very important. But talking about the diaspora and Gambians, now that we have achieved the change that we all wanted, though everything is not okay, you know, a lot need to be done. But we have a lot of warriors behind social media. What do you think should be the roles and responsibilities of the diaspora and Gambians now that we have achieved the change that we want, and we need to move the country forward? You know, Gambians alone here, Barrow alone cannot do it. We have a state to play, but don't you think the criticisms coming out from outside Gambia, it's too much on him?
We fought for democracy. There is no halfway house here.
Don't you think it's been abused?
No. Well, I mean, unless people are outrageously rude or they insult the president, speaking your mind is part of press freedom, but also freedom of speech. That is the cardinal and fundamental element in democracy and human rights. It's a human right to speak your mind, as long as you don't insult people, and there are laws against that kind of thing anyway. But let me just talk about briefly, I'll come to the social media aspect, but let me just say this about the contribution of the diaspora. You talk about not paying direct taxes. 2016, $219 million was contributed by the diaspora, amounting to between 22 and 25% of GDP.
GDP, yeah.
Now, that's an underestimate, if you ask me, because that's only taking note of the regulated corridors. Yeah. If you look at the greater unregulated corridors, where the bulk of the money goes, I can promise you that diaspora contributes anything up to $500 million annually to the Gambia. Now, that it has implications, of course, in terms of our economy, but also in terms of our politics. We are saying diaspora needs to vote. Section 39 of the 1997 Constitution is specific. It says every Gambian of eligible age and of sound mind. And it doesn't say you have to live in the diaspora or not.
Perhaps they might attach it to resources, the lack of resources that will...
Look,
you know.
Southern Sudan, Africa's youngest country, was able to vote. Their diaspora was able to vote. And these people are coming out of a fratricidal war spanning many years. They were still able to organize enough and ensure that they are diaspora. In fact, these people in Southern Sudan copied I remember taking Sam Ayub to the House of Commons in the UK to have a briefing session with the MPs there, because we had set the stage and done that before. And he learned from us. They are voting now. Their diaspora is able to vote. We can't vote. The excuse is we don't have the resources. No. There is an organization called IDEA. And we've approached them way back in 2001, you know, to support us so that our diaspora can vote. They said to us, that is the MRDG UK, of which we were all members, as the Movement for the Restoration of Democracy in Gambia. And they said to us, write back to the IEC in Gambia and find out how we are able to focus support in ensuring that the diaspora votes. We wrote to the then, I think it was Mr. Gabriel Roberts. We didn't even have the courtesy of a reply. Wow. You see. So these are some of the things that we've done. But the diaspora continues to play a fundamental and significant role in terms of national development. We look after our families, for instance, by sending remittances. Now we are saying the cost of remittance in Gambia is too high, it's 9%. We are saying it needs to be reduced to 3% or lower before 2021. That's not a very difficult thing to achieve if we have the right regulations in place. What that will mean is that the diaspora's contribution will become more tangible, in that the government is able then to have taxes taken out of that, or maybe, you know, the benefit of those remittances are able to be used in terms to help national development funding. Now, there are a whole lot of stuff that the diaspora wants to do. Our right to vote, we must not only limit it to the right to vote. That's a fundamental right that was given. We didn't have the enabling legislation or the regulation in place to ensure that happens. But we are now saying we want representation from the diaspora at the National Assembly level. It is only natural that we make this development and this progress in order for us, all of Gambia's children, to be able to take part in our aspiration for a better Gambia. And in, you know, I came back in 2017, I came back in 2018, and here we are in 2019. And in our attempts and to really integrate ourselves into the development trajectory and processes, we find there is a bit of resistance. And I don't know why. Because the diaspora is a significant component. Last year at the MSDG conference, the president himself made a declaration that the diaspora is now the 8th region of the country. And it may be a socio-political construct, but the reality is that it has implications in terms of representation, but also in terms of our right to vote. These are entitlements.
That is achievable, Mr. Chongam, but it will take time.
No, yes.
It will really take time. In the current situation that we have here, that we need to remedy for going out there to say, let's have a representative of the National Assembly.
Yeah, but
it's definitely achievable,
even before the representative of the National Assembly, they have to also remove this residency clause. If you are a Gambian citizen, you are anywhere, you should be able to have the right. You are paying tax and they have the right to contest. I mean, there can be different forms of system in the way to do it. The Kenyans, they have a system where you can contest, but if you become an MP or whatever, then you have to surrender the nationality that you have, so that you have only one nationality. So there are ways and means to do that. But I think, I mean, diaspora voting is achievable. And also I must register here that, not my district, my other trips, I have met Mr. Njai, the IEC chairman, and he's amenable, because we had a big petition online about diaspora voting where lots of people have signed this petition. So, but the thing is, this thing, we should not lose momentum, especially now we have this Constitutional Review Commission. We should make sure that the diaspora vote on the new constitution.
That was not going to be my next question. Maybe a lot of chunk of you are around to meet them, and of course they're going down. They're currently in the Congos.
No, they've already met them. I think, James, you get a submission. Yeah, I watched it when I was in the UK. And we've already met them, and James...
It's noted.
So that's right. We just need to be vigilant to make sure that there's no hitches. Every country, in any country, everybody should see yourself in the country. We should not be discriminated because we are not living here.
Well, talking about the diaspora and with everything that you do, we have like the UKs, the Americas, the Asians, you name it, but as the saying goes, Beno with the fathers, there's a lot of problem coming. We have a lot of heroes behind the keyboards and stuff, but the oneness, to us outside watching, it's definitely lacking.
No, but let's be brutally honest. Even the oneness inside here is not
let's talk about the diaspora. Because I believe when you come as one, you can do more than what you're doing right now.
Well, hold on. If the oneness is not here at home, what is happening in the diaspora is just reflecting.
What do you mean the oneness is not here?
Well, you said that the Beno is not inside
in the diaspora.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's the same thing. We are the same people.
It's not even healthy to have that Beno.
Exactly.
No, when it comes about talking about developing, moving the country from the stage that it is right now.
But let me come about this issue about social media and so on. James touched on it earlier on. In a democracy, you don't have to go far. Have you been watching Senegalese TV?
Oh, yes.
Exactly. So we have a right to have an intellectual argument. I give you an example. We are very good friends. We do everything together. But we belong to we support different parties in the UK. Malik is a leftist. I'm not a leftist. I won't say what I'm, but, So, you know what I mean. So, but what binds us is rule of law and democracy. And also, whatever statement you do nowadays, even in England, so long as you're not committing libel or you're not slandering people, the government have tools. I mean, social media is an opportunity like everything. Like when the radios came newly, when the television came newly. I think my advice is people should have a right to express their opinion. Expressing your opinion and insulting people, they're two different things.
Not even talking about the insults, but the abuse.
That's what I'm saying. If you do that, we should have a culture of prosecuting people. If it's a civil lawsuit, but if you do something, in England there are laws, it's a democracy, you can say everything. But there are laws, if you start to talk about terrorism or something like that, the police will arrest you and then you'll have your day in court. So, but we have to build a culture of tolerance. We cannot just all agree. Then it becomes hypocritical. Then we are in North Korea. You know what I mean? we must learn to agree and disagree, but it should be done within the context of respect.
Respect and rule of law.
And rule of law.
So,
Yeah,
I mean, how are we going to help Barrow achieve his objectives in the first place? You know, we can criticize, we can sit here the whole day talking about things that we expect and they're not happening, but what do you think we can play, particularly you, the people watching from a distance? How do you think things will work?
Our input is like what you just alluded to, social media. That's the platform we have, or we come to programs such as this and give our opinion. We are very opinionated people, as you see here. I almost every day on a daily basis write on Facebook the things that I am seeing in Gambia, the things that could be changed, and I am also coming with solutions. I don't just criticize. Like the other day I was traveling and I observed that the roads, we don't have many road networks, and I wrote about it and I said one thing that Gambia lacks, and I think the government should really look into that, is road maintenance unit. The road maintenance unit, because sometimes they build a new road costing us maybe $50 million of loan, and after 1 year you find potholes in the road and that is not even filled, and then that develops and develops. You come the following year, that road that it costed you $50 million, the loan which you're paying, the interest is not even covered, that road becomes completely unusable and it becomes redundant. So you have to construct another loan to build that same road that you just built 2 years ago.
So you write this on Facebook and...
Yeah, these are the issues that we come up with as constructive criticisms. To say, look, I come to Gambia, I'm not attacking the government, but I am observing this, and I said, you need to work on this. Have a road maintenance unit that will go and look at these roads that you build costing us millions, and then fill the potholes, make sure we keep the standard of the road continue. Look at here, I was coming into Kanifing and I traveled the roads. All the roads that were tarred are completely gone.
But if you read it on Facebook, don't you think there can be a better platform to send it to? The authorities are here.
No,
you go to the Foreign Affairs Ministry, they have a representative for diaspora.
No, but we have the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I've never seen him engage the Gambian diaspora, despite having the tag of being our foreign minister. These are the type of things that you should go and engage the people.
He came to the UK, had a town hall meeting.
I'm never aware of him coming there or meeting.
Meet the diaspora.
Yeah, meet the diaspora.
Yes, when
the president came to the United Kingdom.
To the Commonwealth, but we organized the meeting so he could meet the Gambian people.
Exactly.
But some of the questions that were put to him, they refused to answer because they thought that we were being critical
but they
of
even
the
selected
government.
the people that will ask questions. That was choreographed, and I'm not about that. What I'm saying is our contribution is to come, see the conditions, and say where you can improve, how you can look. Our schools are dilapidated because of lack of maintenance. The culture of maintenance has to be brought back and built in this. The hospitals, you would find one area is not painted, it looks so ugly because there is no maintenance unit. Maintenance has to be inbuilt in the system. And if you look at also the water shortages, these are issues that we come and we talk about, and it calls the attention of the government. Because if you don't have people talking and agitating about these things, it will not focus their minds. And the government is busy buying expensive vehicles. My God, if you look at the ministries and they do a vehicle auditing of the Gambia, then you will find out where our billions have been going.
But these vehicles have been there since Jammeh's era.
Yeah, but that's no excuse. There are new ones coming. That's no excuse. These are wastages in a country that is impoverished. We are so poor. Even the lifestyle of the presidency and the entourage, they all have to be revisited and looked into so that they can curtail and address some of the most basic of needs in the country. And those are lacking. The level of poverty in this country is, you wouldn't only know it until you travel and see the world and see the vast difference in terms of development. Some of the things are basic. They just require little amount of money to make a difference. You see one vehicle costing millions that could have addressed an issue of a school or a hospital or that.
But you guys have been in the diaspora for like decades. Maybe it's high time that we start seeing Mr. Bohum, Mr. Carr, pushing these investors down there to come down and invest something. Not before you come, Mr. Bohum.
Look, we are all taking baby steps back home. I can assure you that.
There are a lot of investors that are ready to invest, but they don't know how.
Of course. There are a lot of people who want to come back home. And I'm sure in due course, you will find out that what kept most of us out of this country for 22 years was because of the very bad dictatorship we had here. And that having gone, we are coming back. But let me come back to the question of social media. Look, this is a new era, and people have another platform through which they can hold their governments accountable. That's a fact. When we fought Jammeh, we used social media, and nobody said anything about that. It was good then. It should be good now. Because right now, social media gives the people who are the actual lawmakers, the sovereign, that's the Constitution states it clearly, that sovereignty resides in the people.
And that's why we want to talk about everything and anything on social media.
We need to use social media as a tool through which we can hold government accountable. That's what we did with Jammeh. So we are not going to change that. It's not going to change.
You're running out of time.
I meant to make 2 points. This is just not Gambia. It's happening in Senegal, it's happening in Ethiopia, everywhere. And even where in the country we live, in the United Kingdom, we criticize the citizens there. They use social media, they criticize, they put the government into account. So this is not about enmity, this is not about anti-government. This is about not only identify the issues, but also providing what are the solutions. You know, we have to get a psyche in the Gambia where people, if they see something wrong, they can say it and express it, then we address it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ibrahim Changan, Mr. Malika, James Bahum. Well, viewers, that's all we have in tonight's edition of The Viewpoint. I've been your host, Babukar C. I hope you enjoyed the program. I'll be back here next week, the same time on QTV. And those of us that follow us on Q Radio 103.3. Thank you very much. Good evening.